second municipal year in office, so welcome to all my colleagues, officers, people who are in the public gallery, and we are being webcast again today, so welcome to everyone who's watching at home or catching up later. If we could do some welcomes first. I'm Stephen Williams. I'm the Liberal Democrat Councillor for Westbury-on-Trim and Henlees, and I chair this committee. If I go around my colleagues.
Yeah, hi, I'm Councillor Emily Clark, Labour Councillor for Bedminster Ward and Vice Chair of this committee.
Hello, I am Councillor Lisa Durston, Labour Councillor for Filwood Ward.
Good morning, I'm Carol Johnson, Councillor for Hallfield Ward. Thank you.
Badruddin, Councillor Henbury Braintree.
Hello, I'm Councillor Ed Fraser, Green Councillor for Eastville Ward.
Hello, I'm Patrick McAllister, Green Councillor for Hotwells and Harbside Ward and substituting on this committee.
Abdul Malik, Councillor for Ashley Ward for the Green Party.
Hello, Ellie Freeman, Green Party Councillor for Bedminster and substituting today.
Thank you, colleagues. And as usual, we've got plenty of officers in the room as well who will assist me as we go through the agenda and will introduce themselves as we come to each item. But to my left is Amy Rodwell, who's the Policy Committee Democratic Services Officer for this committee. Safety announcements for those who are in the room. Unusually, for committee meetings, we do expect a fire drill, which takes place every Friday morning at 10 o'clock, so the fire alarm will sound at that point. If it continues to sound, it's for real. If it comes at any other time, it's also for real, and the procedure is to exit through the door into the Council House lobby, out onto the ramp and down to assemble outside the cathedral. Okay, agenda item 2. Do we have, Amy, any apologies for absence and substitutions?
Yes, so we've received apologies from Councillors Cara Levan and Fee Hance, with Councillors Patrick McAllister and Ellie Freeman attending as substitute. Thank
you. Item 3, are there any declarations of interest that members would like to make that aren't already in the register and are relevant to this meeting? Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, Chair. I've just to note, I have previously advertised the Pedlars consultation as part of the proposed area is in my ward, but I don't consider myself predetermined. I'm intended to listen to the debate.
Councillor Freeman.
Same really, just to say that Ashton Gate Stadium is obviously in Bedminster Ward, but it's not something that I've talked about with anybody actually yet.
Okay, well, thank you for bringing those matters to our attention, but I don't think they're an issue. Agenda item 4 is the minutes of our last meeting on the 9th of May 2025. I've gone through them and I think they are a correct record unless any colleagues have any observations on them. No? In that case, I'll move that they are a correct record. Can I have a seconder, please? Oh, Ed, thank you very much. So are we agreed that they are a correct record and can be put into the Council's records? Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, agenda item 5 is Chair's announcements, which I normally keep very light, but I've got a few things just to put on the record that aren't that controversial, but there's no other way for me to put them on the record. First of all, in the minutes that we've just approved, when we discussed the investment in highways and landscape trees, I said that this is a significant cost to the council. It's a nationwide problem. In fact, it's a European-wide problem, and we really should be getting assistance from central government. And I would write to DEFRA, the relevant department, and a letter has gone from me to the Secretary of State, Steve Reid. And we haven't had a reply yet. And if we do get a reply, that will be shared with the committee, and I'll refer to it in our next meeting if it's come by then. Secondly, and thirdly, in fact, at our last meeting, we set up 2 task and finish groups, one on library strategy, which I'm chairing. That's had its first meeting. There are 3 meetings to go. Initially, I said at the last meeting that the third of those meetings would be a full public meeting with library friends groups and so on coming along to give evidence. We've changed our minds, as it were, since then, have decided that rather than try and get everyone along to one meeting, which inevitably would cause some people not to be able to come, we're going to run a concurrent public engagement with as many groups as we can. So it's going to be a lot more work for me as chair. It doesn't necessarily mean the members have to go along to lots of libraries to meet people, but I'll be doing as many as I can. We've also retained a consultancy firm called Activist, who've got lots of experience with library strategies and other council strategies up and down the country. They helped facilitate our first meeting, made it very productive, and are working with us on the next 3 meetings as well. So we're getting best value from them by not having a dedicated third meeting with members of the public. But where we're going forward actually gives more opportunities for people who are interested in libraries to contribute to our emerging strategy. The second task and finish group that we set up was on commercial opportunities in our parks, estates and through our festivals and events as well. That's chaired by Councillor Ed Fraser. That's also had its first meeting and has got 4 more to go. So the ball is rolling on that. And both of these will be reporting back to this committee with their reports on, I think it's November the 21st, our November meeting. And the fourth thing I want to draw members' attention to and the public is about our public health duties. Since 2012, when the coalition government devolved public health to local authorities, it came with a public health grant, which is, as you now know from our regular financial reports, runs into around about 40 million to commission services within Bristol and some in our neighbouring local authorities as well. That is subject to an annual audit and assurance visit from the Regional Director of Public Health, who is Dr. Justin Varney Bennett. He's come to the council a couple of times in the last couple of months for an informal visit and then a formal assurance visit where he met with me, the Chief Executive, Christina Gray as Director of Public Health, and also Carol Slater, Head of Public Health, and Penny German, our Head of Communities, and asked us questions and went through how we've been spending the money. We have had our assurance letter back, and he is satisfied, more than satisfied in fact, with how we are spending the Department for Health's money. And I just want to draw your attention to a couple of points that he made he highlighted about our good practice. It says there is a tight grip of public health commissioning, contracting and budget management. The effectiveness of Bristol's early years offer, which integrates mandated public health nurse functions with targeted and preventative public health interventions, was also noted with approval. We have a good retention rate of our staff in public health nursing services, which apparently is unusual in this sector, and he drew particular attention to the focus of well-being of those working at night. You'll remember we discussed Christina's annual report last year on the city economy at night, which has actually been discussed in quite a few other forums as well. So that report has certainly been well received both in Bristol and beyond. He also noted in the performance assurance letter that there has been an increase in NHS health checks and the successful workplace pilot undertaken with North Bristol Trust, which is the one that runs in particular Southmead. But also very pleasingly, there's been a turnaround in drug and alcohol service performance and securing a new strategic provider for Bristol, which, if you remember, is another one of the big contracts that we as a committee approved a couple of meetings ago. So he thanks the team for their work, and we've got a clean bill of health. So I'd like to put all of that on the record because there wasn't really an opportunity to do it otherwise. And on everyone's behalf, I'd like to thank Christina as our Director of Public Health and all the other officers in the team for their excellent work, which has now been noted at regional and national level. So thank you very much. Anything you want to add to that, Christina?
Thank you for that. We were very pleased, relieved also. It was a lot of work for the team and our support officers. So just a huge thank you for us to get it over the line.
Thank you for that. So we're now going to public forum. We have no questions submitted to us for public forum on this occasion, but we do have a lot of statements. In fact, we've got at least 92 statements, all submitted on the subject of the proposal for a community Lido in Eastville Park. And the reason I say at least is we've got 92 that were submitted either via the means they were meant to be submitted, or they were emailed to the leader's office and have been picked up there. There have been lots of other emails. I've had dozens of emails this week that have come either just to me or have been copied to me because they've been sent to either Damien Egan MP or Kerry McCarthy MP or the regional mayor as well. We can't be sure whether they're all in the list of people who've given statements. So if there's anyone listening who sent in an email and your name doesn't appear in the minutes, I'm sorry, but that's the reason. Nobody's actually indicated that they're going to speak to their statement. I'm just looking at somebody in the public gallery who doesn't wish to speak to it. I would just say, though, on the record, we don't engage with statements formally at committee, but just because there's a lot of interest in this, just for background, a proposal has been made by a member of the public for the building of a new Lido in Eastville Park. It's not a council proposal, it's just an idea at the moment, which will have a long journey before it potentially comes to fruition. I met the proposer of this idea several months ago and told her that she would need to speak to our parks officers, and a meeting is going to take place next week, and would have to consider other issues such as a community asset transfer as well. So this is in an incredibly early stage. It's a concept, an idea at the moment, though it is backed up by some drawings, but it's not in the council's formal decision-making pathway at this stage, and it may not get that far. We'll have to see how it develops. Councillor Fraser, this is in your ward. You indicated to me earlier you'd like to say something, but keep it brief and non-controversial.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just want to say thank you to all those residents that have taken the time to write into public forum, and also those that have written into me and Stephen and others via email, including those, not just those who support what's being proposed, but also those who are in opposition to the proposal and those that have raised concerns that they'd like to see addressed. I would personally like to see there be a viability study, and we'll see if things make it to that stage, because there's clearly such overwhelming public interest that it feels like something we should be considering seriously. But as you say, before anything could get built, there will be a lot of steps to go through. There may be compelling reasons not to go ahead with this, as well as the many compelling reasons there could be to go ahead. So, and I expect there will be some difficult conversations that need to be had. So I'll do my best to listen to residents and help them take their questions forward to this council. So if and when there are future stages, we can then trust the outcomes in our collective best interest. So thank you to everyone who's written into public forum today and contacted me separately, and please do continue to reach out to me regarding the Lido proposals.
Thanks, Ed. Right, we'll now go into our formal business, and I'll just say for the benefit of people watching or listening, there is a ceremony, a flag raising ceremony, and a short reception in between 10:30 and just after 11 to mark the beginning of Bristol's Pride, LGBT Pride Festival, which committee members, including myself, would like to attend. If we finished our business by then we'll be able to attend it, no problem. If we haven't, we're going to adjourn just before 10:30 and resume back in here at 10 past 11. But we'll see how business goes. Right, agenda item 7 is a formality. Every committee is going to have to do this at the start of the municipal year. This is confirming our membership and remit. So our Democratic Services Officer, Amy Rodwell, will introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. So this is just a short report for noting the arrangements for the Public Health and Communities Policy Committee for this municipal year. So the report outlines the membership, the chairing arrangements. So we've got Councillor Williams as the chair and Councillor Clark as the vice chair. It also highlights the terms of reference for the committee and the meeting dates for this municipal year. And it also outlines the health subcommittee arrangements as well. So that's just a short report for noting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Amy. So this is just for noting, unless people have a burning desire to comment on who's here and what our remit is. Good. Right. So I propose that we note our annual business report and note my appointment by full council as chair, note Councillor Clark's appointment as vice chair, to note our terms of reference and our meeting dates, which should already be in members' calendars anyway, our meeting dates through to spring of 2026. We're all happy to note this report? Yes? Right, it is duly noted. So if we go on to agenda item 8, this is a proposal for 2 public space protection orders, one in the harbourside area of the city and one in the immediate surroundings of Ashton Gate Stadium. A public space protection order is also known as a PSPO, if you hear it being referred to in that way. Because we're doing 2, that's why this is coming to the committee. If it was just 1, it would be done under delegated authority to the chair and senior officers, but we're doing 2 on this occasion, and that's for timely expediency. Really, we've got the Harbour Festival coming up, and we've also got the Women's Rugby World Cup, which is great for Bristol, coming up in the autumn as well. So that's why we need to move with some alacrity on both of these. And we've got Director of Management of Place, Patsy Mellor, to introduce this report, but we've also got John Martin with us as well to help answer any questions. Patsy.
Thank you, Chair. So as Chair's outlined, this is a request for 2 public space protection orders for Ashton Gate and for the Harbourside. This is in response to serious safety concerns raised in 2024, where peddlers positioned themselves in areas that caused event management issues, serious event management issues, such as the either end of Penrose Bridge or in Ashton Gate on the footpaths, forcing pedestrians into the roadway to be able to pass. So this is not about stopping peddlers operating in these locations, but it is to stop where we have blockage on severe restrictions. So Penrose Bridge is a great example where we have a one-way system in the Harbourside during the event due to the volume of people. And last year there were severe issues with the one-way system being interfered with by peddlers located on either side of Penrose Bridge and blocking the flow. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Patsy. Do members have any observations or questions? Councillor Malik?
Yeah, so I don't really know where to start with this one. Being a businessman myself, I just think that there is a lot of questions in terms of why we're going to this level of extreme action. The action plan that we've set out is the worst case scenario, I would say, for anybody trading in that area. I have issues also with the fact that we don't have any up-to-date data. The last report was in 2008. The recent consultation, so in 2.4 of the Equalities Impact Assessment, it talks about the consultation being split and not many respondents at all. And then in 3.1 it says we're not aware of the characteristics of the people that we will be affecting here. The report that we have is from 2008, so there's no up-to-date figures on that in terms of the demographic, the type of person that we're affecting here in terms of the traders. Also, I mean, for somewhere like, a football venue or, there will be a certain amount of value to the commodity that's being sold to, so there will be You know, for instance, if there's a match going on, there'll be people selling merchandise for that match. So it kind of will have an impact on the atmosphere of the match as well. Have all of these things been considered? I've seen the reports, but I just think that they're out of date. There's not been enough. There's not enough evidence here, but also I feel that we should value those people that have small amount of trade in that area, and we should be really sure about who we're affecting. And the way that the council works, I'm sure that they could come up with a safe area for traders if they worked with those peddlers in the local community. I understand the health and safety issues as well. Thank you.
Patsy, or perhaps John as well, do you want to try and answer those questions?
I'll take the first part, then I'll pass over to John to answer on the EQIA. We're not at all stopping any peddlers operating in the area. I do agree with you, they add to the atmosphere of the area and they bring value to an event. But last year in particular, we had a major issue where they simply refused to move from Heroes Bridge, despite police requests, despite council officers' requests, and despite the fact there was an obvious problem with health and safety on the bridge. They refused to move. So all we're asking them to do is not stand in prominent positions for more than 20 minutes. So it's not about restricting their ability to trade at the events, but it is so we are able to enforce when there is a safety issue. I'll hand over to John for the EQIA questions.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the area that we're creating does stop traders within that locality. So it is peddlers. So peddlers are licensed by police forces nationally. There is no local or national register. There is no local licensing regime. And the nature of peddlers, certainly in my experience working at the harbour side last year, is that they refuse to engage. They will not move, despite the fact that there's already an act in place which suggests that they should only trade, and the Logie case suggests that they should only trade in one location for 20 to 30 minutes. But they refuse to move, and that does compromise safety. So in terms of the purpose of the PSPO, it is to counteract that refusal to move and to create an area where during certain times and during certain events they will be excluded. But the map attached to it does show, and this is the proportionality which is really important to understand with this, is we're not creating a blanket ban for peddlers. It's just in certain locations, if they move outside of that area, they're perfectly at will to trade, providing they've got the necessary peddler's licence in place.
Thanks, John. And it's Perra's Bridge. I mean, I've noted myself, as someone who's gone to the Harbour Festival many times over the last 20 or 30 years, is a particular pinch point where I've felt unsafe. Lots of people trying to cross over the bridge at that point. And Queen Square is excluded, isn't it?
That's right. There are statutory conditions attached to creation of a PSPO. And again, it's making sure it's that proportionality, making sure that it is Human Rights Act compliance, is that Queen Square isn't within that excluded area because there is no safety compromise being made there by peddlers in and around the vicinity of Queen Square. And again, just to illustrate the point, we actually had a peddler physically on Perrot's Bridge, so really constricting the ability of people or pedestrians to walk through that area.
Abdul, do you want to come back on any of that?
Yeah, I still feel that there could be something else that we could do in the area that could make it safe, and there could be a registration system that could be communicated to people in advance. The blanket, you say there's not a blanket ban, but if they're not trading in that vicinity, I mean, they're going to be well out of the vicinity in terms of trying to attract any clientele. So unless there was a trading area where people knew where to go, the businesses would collapse.
Obviously, during the Harbour Festival, we have registered traders with the provider for Harbour Festival. Again, our experience is these peddlers do not engage at all when they have been challenged by the authorities, both Bristol City Council and the police. It is met with a blanket refusal to move. So that lack of engagement tends to indicate it probably won't work, hence the proportionality of trying to propose this PSPO.
Okay, the last thing I'll say is that I think that is a bit of a generalisation about peddlers. There may be people that do want to engage. We need to have an offer for people that do want to engage.
Thanks, Councillor. I think that the one thing to make clear is they can trade all around the area. We're not stopping them walking around the area. We're not stopping them stop to sell. They can engage around Pedlars Bridge. But last year we did have them camped all at the beginning and at the end, each side of Pedlars Bridge and on Pedlars Bridge, that severely hampered our one-way system and safety. We're not saying they're not allowed to walk over Pedlars Bridge or to circulate around Pedlars Bridge or anywhere else. It is about them taking up camp in the most restricted areas.
Sorry, so can we then have we then defined that in terms of what you allow and what you wouldn't? So what do you allow? Would they not allowed to be static for a certain amount of time? Would they not allowed to have a store? What is it that you're stopping that's not been defined?
They have to keep moving. I think that's what the 1871 Act. I mean, it's meant to be door-to-door sales, not a fixed position in a public place.
I think you've just defined what I was going to say, that it is about them keeping moving as defined in the Act, rather than setting up a stall in the middle of Pedlars Bridge.
Sorry, I've got other members indicating. Councillor McAllister, this is in your Hotwells and Harbourside ward, or one of them is.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chair. And I'm quite sympathetic to a lot of the concerns raised by Councillor Malak, actually. So I would just like to ask if we have considered some other measures. For instance, literally a hole in the middle of the areas, perhaps away from the bridges and away from the pinch points, but an area where peddlers would be allowed to sort of set up and move around in. Have we considered that?
That would restrict the peddlers, and I think they would be very unhappy with us saying you have to stay in one area. The Act clearly defines they're allowed to walk the area, roam the area, and peddle their wares throughout the area. So putting them in one statutory stationary place would not be acceptable to them.
Okay, thank you. That does make sense. I completely understand and actually agree strongly with the concerns about Pedlars Bridge being a pinpoint and pinch point and a safety issue. But we've got a lot of, in the Harbourside area specifically, maybe the Bedminster councils will want to talk more about the Ashton Gate area, but we've got some large areas like the Amphitheatre, Millennium Square, Waterfront Place, Anchor Square. Like, why? These areas don't seem to be pinch points depending on where fencing gets set up and so on. So why have we decided to encompass such a large area away from just Pedlars Bridge and its entrances?
Chair, so great thought has been given to the area to be covered by the map. If I can refer you to page 29, you will see the care that we've put into this. I've worked at the Harbour Festival for many years, year in, year out. I've seen it during quieter times when weather has been poor. I've also seen it at very busy times when we've got in excess of 100,000 people in and around the harbour area at peak demand. All of those areas at peak demand are very congested. So that entire area from Pedlars Bridge right the way through by the watershed, that's actually quite a narrow area. You then bear in mind you've got the amphitheatre which is in use. Those are emergency exits, so either side of the amphitheatre. You've also got Millennium Square, which is very popular because of families, children in the water, etc. So those are very congested areas. And if you care to look at the bottom of College Green, where you've got the main pedestrian crossings, again, you have large volumes of people toing and froing because College Green is also in use during the Harbour Festival. That's our main children's area. So care has been given to these locations, again, looking at the main pinch points. But if you look outside of this area, where peddlers will be free to trade, so right the way around Queen Square, the Centre Prom, no problem at all. They will be free to trade there. So they're in close proximity, but then will be excluded from those areas which will So where Pedlars are located, they can and do cause severe restrictions on the ability of people to move around. It is a very congested area at peak demand.
Thank you. If I may, thank you. That does answer my question. I have a couple more, if that's all right. I appreciate what has been said about the need. That there is no need under safety considerations to expand the Harbourside PSPO to Queen's Square. But I have noticed that Prince Street Bridge isn't included in the red line here, and given that I appreciate that we don't consider that there's a safety concern around there now, it's a wider bridge after all, but if we do implement this, you might expect an element of displacement. So will we be monitoring to make sure that other bridges, for Prince Street Bridge probably being the most prominent, don't end up becoming safety hazards as well?
You're absolutely right. So we will have officers working the duration of the Harbour Festival this year, along with our police colleagues as well. We will be looking for displacement, whether that does cause any safety concerns. And if necessary, we will need to bring this back for review and potential amendment as well, accordingly. But this is our best assessment of what our current knowledge is of the pinch points in and around that area.
Thank you very much. That's all I've got for now, Chair.
Thank you. Emily?
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like we've heard about why, or like the kind of reason why this is needed for the Harbour Festival, but I'd be interested in just hearing a bit more about what's happened around Ashton Gate Stadium, which is in mine and Ellie's wards. It's actually not an issue that's been raised with me previously, but I think this is quite a different, it's just a very different location. I can see that it covers kind of the main roads around Ashton Gate, where I would be concerned about people being pushed into Winterstoke Road or Ashton Road, and Grevelsmith Park isn't covered, which is right by the stadium, so that makes sense. But it would just be helpful if you could give us some information, I guess, along the lines that you've given for the Harbourside one in respect of Ashton Gate.
It's similar concerns. So again, during peak demand for Ashton Gate, the pavements are narrow. Pedlars again refuse to move, forcing people into the road. Obviously the roads aren't closed during games. They are closed during some festivals or when they hold music concerts there, particularly on Ashton Road. I think to illustrate the point is probably derived actually from the consultation, because there's actually respondents there who are disabled, who are being forced into the road, and that is a serious safety concern. In addition, of course, you've got the representations, of course, from Ashton Gate as well themselves, who see firsthand the problems that this causes. So again, it's about proportionality. Again, lack of engagement from Pedlars, they refuse to move. So it's about the introduction of a PSPO in an attempt to control it. There's no reason why the Pedlars, if they moved into Grevelsmith Park, no problem at all.
Yeah, can I just follow up? And so it sounds like for the Harbourside one, the kind of trigger point for this was what happened last year around Perry's Bridge. Was there like an equivalent event that took place that made you guys look at Ashton Gate, or is it just we've known for a long time this is an issue?
No, this has been an ongoing issue. Right. Very much taking the opportunity to combine, take the opportunity to bring both together.
As I said in my introduction, it's timely in particular this year because we've got the Women's Rugby World Cup coming, and obviously we want to make sure that's a great success and everyone is safe. Any other comments from members? Lisa?
Thanks. Yeah, so how will the enforcement actually be kind of resourced and managed, and do we feel confident that we've got enough resources to manage these PSPOs? And also at the start of the report, it states that a group representing the interests of Pedlars may become litigious. So what is the plan if a legal challenge is mounted against us?
I'll take both questions in turn. So in terms of resources, PSPOs can be enforced by both police and our local enforcement officers. You're absolutely right to express concern around enforcement. We can't be everywhere at once. For harbour festivals and the events that take place on the harbour side, we tend to have enforcement cover there. in preparation for the Harbour Festival, working with my colleagues in police, we will be doing a briefing specifically on Pedlars to ensure that we've got good coverage there, making sure that the PSPO can be enforced. In terms of the PSPO itself, to be enforced, you have to publicly display notices in the vicinity of the area to be covered by the PSPO, and they will be placed as and when required. So we will be removed at points when there is no events or festivals taking place. So again, Pedlars, answering a question from previous members earlier, Pedlars will be able to trade in those locations outside of events and festivals. So we will have enforcement cover there, but you're absolutely right, we can't be everywhere at once. The second question around potential litigation coming forward from a group representing Pedlars, absolutely the case. They have suggested that they may become litigious, which is obviously, we've had to respond to that and take legal advice. And certainly the legal advice and the proposals coming forward, we are of the view that we are Human Rights Act compliant because of the proportionality that we're putting in place. It is not a blanket ban across the city. It is very specific locations, specific times to ensure that we are compliant.
Thanks, John. Councillor Freeman.
Sorry, just a quick question about the stadium. You've just said about sort of specific days and times. Are they going to be really clear? Because a sporting event covers quite a lot. There's not just matches, it's things like family days or launches or whatever, and concerts. And there are also other types of events. So we recently had a supercar event at the stadium as well. So could you just explain a bit more about how you're going to define those events?
I think largely it will depend on capacity. So if you've got a small sporting event, and I'm very conscious, of course, it's going to become a sporting quarter as well, we will need to consider that. But I anticipate it's going to be much more directed at capacity events. So the concerts that they have there, obviously City are doing well at the moment in the Championship, they're attracting large crowds week in, week out. Those are the times when we expect to see the PSPO in place.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up question. And will it be reviewed? Because given the development and there'll be quite a big change in the layout around, and there'll be less traffic around it and all that kind of thing. So is it 3 years, did you say? Yeah.
Yeah. So the statutory requirement is every 3 years review, but in advance of that, it's incumbent on us to see whether this is actually working or not. So yes, we will be reviewing it.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that, we're talking specifically about Bristol City fixtures in the Championship. They're doing quite well at the moment. You'll see from the question of my water bottle, I'm a Coventry City fan. Sadly, neither of our sides made it through the playoffs last season, but I'm looking forward to being booed in the away ends by home fans on March 7th. As a fixture list came out yesterday. But one of the annoying things that does happen to fans is fixture changes at quite late notice from the broadcasters. So it's quite common for a game that would be scheduled on a Saturday later in the season, as this would be, to be brought forward to the Friday night for TV audiences. What practical effect could that have on enforcing these orders? Is there a risk that you suddenly have to move an order from a Saturday to a Friday with only a couple of weeks' notice? How it would work for things like playoff fixtures if Bristol City make the playoffs again? Those kinds of things.
So if approved, the order is in place permanently, but it's the display of the notices which triggers the enforcement of the order. So what we would anticipate is working with Ashton Gate to actually have the notices displayed as and when required. In the same way as we'd be doing that on the harbour side, the notices will not be in place permanently. They will be erected, pulled down when there are events taking place. Does that follow? Thank you.
Right, I think we've had a very good discussion about this. Unless there are any other points, I'll move the recommendations, which are that the Committee for Public Health and Communities approves the proposal for establishing the public space protection orders covering the outlined areas of the harbour side and the vicinity of Ashton Gate Stadium as detailed at Appendix A, which also includes both the draft orders. So I move this. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Clark. All those in favour, please indicate. You need to vote. All those in favour, please indicate. That's unanimous. So thank you, colleagues. And thank you, officers. We'll have a changing of the guard now at the top table. Pete, if you want to come, you can stay there if you like, but you can come forward. I think that discussion, while we've got a little hiatus, proves the value, as I keep saying, 9 eyes, pairs of eyes are often better than 1 pair of eyes. This has come through me, obviously, several stages before, and there is another one in the pipeline as well. And while I asked a lot of questions myself, committee members asked a lot more that didn't occur to me. So it does show the value of a committee system, even if not everyone in other places recognises that. Right. So I'm now joined by Pete Franklin, who is our, you've got a very long title, so I'm going to get it right, Strategic Intelligence and Performance Advisor for the Council, who produces lots of data and statistics for members. So this is one of our routine reports that we have quarterly, seeing how our various officers and directorates are doing against the Council's, it's called a business plan in the report, the corporate plan, and various targets that have been set. At some point, we will be looking at the targets that are measured by this committee. All committees will be going through that, but that's an exercise that's ahead of us now that the new Council corporate strategy and plan is in place. But in the meantime, we've got this set, and these are measures for the last quarter of 24-25, so up until 31st of March 2025. They're not where we are now, which is certainly relevant to one of the indicators. But Pete, do you want to give the professional introduction?
If only I could, Chair. I think you summed it up completely. What this is a report in front of you against the business plan, the current business plan of 24-25, of all the measures of success contained within there. So it's actions and it's also performance indicators. And those measures that come under the remit of this policy committee are brought to you. As Chair has said, this is a report up to the 31st of March 25, so anything that's happened after that is not included in the report. I would encourage you, under section 1, it does link you to the corporate performance dashboard. I would encourage you to have a look, because it's not just this policy committee that's on there, it's the other policy committees as well, and you can kind of see how well the actions and KPIs have performed over the year, particularly for this committee. So what I'm going to do is then skip down to the key points to note with the chart that's showing where we are, and you can see that there's a lot of green there. That's because 6 of the 7 actions are on target at the end of March. And on Appendix A2, it explains what actions were taken and where we are, and we're on track. There is one that's been behind target all year, and that one is the risks associated with, as Chair highlighted earlier, the ash dieback. But that is a position statement as at 31st of March. I'm not sure if an officer, perhaps Patsy, wants to add anything regarding ash dieback to let you know, but at the 31st of March, it was behind schedule.
Thank you, Pete. Any comments or questions from members? Sorry, could I just... Sorry, I haven't quite finished.
Oh, sorry. I was just referencing ash dieback there, Chair. That's okay. That's okay. I wanted to encourage Patsy to add something around what's happening, but I'm sure you're all aware because the monies was actually requested this committee on the 9th of May. Please add something, Patsy. Get me out of this hole.
Thank you. So, as committee are aware, we came in May with approval to funding. So the report is correct. Up until May, the programme was behind schedule because funding had not been allocated to carry out the works required. That has now happened. Project board's established and the project's underway.
Thank you, Chair. If I just continue, I won't be long, I promise you. The priority metric, the only priority metric within this policy committee is around maintaining engagement levels, and that one's performed really well all year, thanks to officers within public health, communities in public health. Most of the indicators you'll have seen at Q3 because they're quality of life indicators. So I'm not sure what you're looking at there. You're on, oh, you're there. Item BPOM 260 is around the percentage of people who live in the most 10% deprived areas of Bristol reporting poor mental health. I've noted this one because this wasn't brought to you at Q3. There was a lot of calculations that had to be done to establish the 10% most deprived areas and then come up with the figure. And the figure is actually really good. It's at 10%, which is a huge drop from previous years. Sorry, I apologise, not 10%. It's dropped from the previous 2 years at 34% to 30% and now at 24%. So that's incredible. And just to give some context, Bristol is around 20% overall. So that's a really good thing to note there. Overall, the report is it's really, really positive in the work that's gone on within communities and public health, and as I also said, growth and regeneration. That's it, but I would also like to pick up on what Chair just said about next year, i.e. the year we're in now. We are looking at the business plan, and we will be coming back to you about what measures you want to look at, what actions you want to look at, what KPIs, what targets are going to look like, how you can then hold officers to account. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the second time. Right, now are there any points that members wish to make? Lisa, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks very much for that report. Looking at action HC 3.3, referring to the sanctuary scheme, really important scheme that supports survivors of domestic abuse to stay in their own homes. It's an 82% rate of people who are able to stay within their own accommodation. Can you talk about what the actual impact of this is? What is the impact of those 82% being able to stay in their own homes? Are there any themes around the 12% that didn't stay in their own homes? And would you say that this scheme was accessed equitably by women from more marginalised communities, so black and minoritized communities or disabled survivors?
I think it's probably best the Director of Public Health answers that question.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Lisa and all, for your continued sort of advocacy and support for this very important work. This is an excellent scheme. As we know, for too long, victims have had to move when there has been a problem within the home. And it's been recognised. This is national recognition, so we have national... This sanctuary scheme is funded by the National Home Office money, not by our investment in wider preventative services. So we would not be able to do it without that policy initiative and that will. Certainly, if anyone's interested to go and see and talk to the women, the victims, or women themselves, and see more about the scheme, do contact Carol Slater, who's not with us today, and she'd be very pleased to do that. But there is no doubt it's transformative for the victims, for their families, for their children. It means that individuals and families are not disrupted, children can stay at school. It also addresses our attention to the perpetrators. We must also be working with perpetrators in order to break cycles of violence. So it's an excellent scheme, and 80% is, it's the first year, so that's very, very good progress, I think, and we would look to be increasing that wherever we can. Thank you.
Patrick?
Thank you, Chair, and yes, thank you for this report. It's really interesting to read. I had one quick question about the how the people who are afraid of crime. So we've got a quote that for our 10% most deprived areas, 41% of respondents report that their fear of crime affects their day-to-day life. That's a reduction from the previous year, where 44% of respondents within the same areas reported a fear of crime. So that's a 3% percentage point reduction. Could I just check, is that significant? Is it a random fluctuation? Is it part of a longer term trend? It's a, any reduction is good, obviously, in this measure, but if given it's 3 percentage points, I'm just wondering if there is a wider significance to it. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think it's worth... It is. I was just going to give... yes.
A statistics versus policy battle here. Let's hear the policy.
No, it's fine, Chair. Chair, I normally call Christina Chair in other meetings. It's fine, Christina, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure Pete was going to say this too. That's a very small reduction, and the validity of the information we get is by self-report and other measures. So these are, you need to take a number of indicators to understand where we are around community safety broadly. I think this is both the indicators that are reported here, both the reduction in antisocial behaviour and that very small reduction in fear of crime, along with the increase in people's well-being, tells us that something is settling, but it also tells us very clearly, and it tells the Community Safety Partnership very clearly, that we have work to do to address people's perceptions. So it's how people feel about their neighbourhood, whether they feel they can go out at night, whether they feel they can go out in the day, and we have these big discrepancies that are neighbourhood based, and actually even within wards there are discrepancies between different areas, and we've got quite a bit of work going on in that. So while it's a pleasing direction of travel, we have considerable work to do as a city to ensure that everybody in this city is and feels safe, and that is absolutely fundamental to people's health and well-being. So thank you for the question.
Any more questions from colleagues? Carol?
Sorry, I just wanted to pick up on my colleague's point, actually. And I just wonder how we are going to track and follow what's happening with NextLink, because the programme's very new and the stats are looking good. But as I'm reading them, I'm just wondering how it is without the information about the perpetrator programmes, that we are managing to keep these families safe in the same geographical area that where they were originally abused. That's massive, and so I'd like to understand more about that, if it really is going as well as it reads, or be thinking about at this stage, which is definitely still in its draft mode, I would say, it's 18 months old or something, about how we go about securing that and making sure that it stays the way that it is. And when I say all of this, I'm thinking about the stats that we know about reoffending, and that perpetual cycle, and that victimisation that just goes, we've seen it in the past, I'll say, go round and round. So I'm just hoping that it doesn't suddenly tail off, or we suddenly find ourselves in a situation where the same families that we thought we'd secured suddenly become re-victimised again in another way.
Thank you, Carol, and extremely pertinent questions and good points. We do have a lot of governance and engagement around domestic abuse and sexual violence. We have a board, and we have a victim-led forum which sense checks what we're doing. There's a lot of monitoring around the actual performance of any contracts. I'm just wondering whether given there's a lot of interest in this area, it might be useful to ask Carol Slater and the Victims Group to do a briefing so that you can ask and explore more deeply into this. You're absolutely right. The reason that this policy has come through is because it was requested by service users and victims and families that the continual displacement and disruption was almost as harmful as the perpetration of abuse. So you're right, this is a new policy. We all need to be watching it very closely. And you're absolutely right, there needs to be offender management and rehabilitation to go alongside that to break those cycles. So thank you again for the question.
So we are hearing from the victims' families.
Absolutely. The service user voice is absolutely key to all work with domestic abuse and sexual violence. It's built into the core contracts, and there is a specific user-led forum who are very powerful advocates with lived expertise in that space. Very important that we keep that at heart. And certainly happy to introduce you, if that would be, Amy, if we could make a note for us to follow that up with any councillors that are interested, with Carol Slater, who leads for us. Thank you.
Right, thank you, everyone. So I'm going to propose that the Public Health and Communities Committee notes performance against the business plan relevant to this committee, including the issues raised and measures to address performance issues to be implemented by our relevant services. So we're all happy to note the report. Thank you. As I indicated at the start, in order to mark the start of Bristol's Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender and Others Pride Festival, there is a flag raising ceremony on College Green just after 10:30 with some speeches and a little reception in the Lord Mayor's reception room afterwards. I don't think we've got enough time to do agenda item 10 in the next 4 minutes or so, so I'm going to adjourn the meeting. And can I ask everyone to be back, which this will allow time for both the flag raising, the speeches and the cup of coffee. Can we come back at 11:10? Okay, so the meeting's adjourned until 11:10. Right, good morning again to everyone. We're back at the Public Health and Communities Policy Committee after our adjournment for LGBT plus Pride flag raising and short ceremony afterwards. So thank you for your patience if you've been watching. So we now come to our last agenda item, which is agenda item 10. This is to do with the contract that we have jointly with the Integrated Care Board for the Children's Community Health Partnership Services. There's a range of services provided under this contract. The reason we're being asked to extend by 12 months is because, as most members will be aware, the government has required integrated care boards to save a significant amount of cost. And in the southwest of England, where there are 7 integrated care boards at the moment, that is likely to result in them being reduced to 3 integrated care boards. Ours at the moment, of course, covers Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire. And the proposal is that it merges or clusters initially with Gloucestershire. That in the short term is going to be a lot of upheaval for the chair, chief executive, all the directors of our own current ICB, and of course all their staff colleagues as well. So we feel for them for what they're about to go through, but it does mean that in the short term, when we were meant to look at this contract again, there's not going to be capacity at the ICB to do it. So we are being asked for an extension today. So I've got Christina Gray, the Director of Public Health, up here with me now, and Christina can describe some more of the background, but also say what this contract actually delivers and why it's important. And it is important because it is a significant amount of money that we put into it. So this isn't a light matter. Christina?
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to start by thanking our lead officers, Joe Williams, Consultant of Public Health, Charlie Williams, who's our Public Health Principal, and Monica Koo, who's our Public Health Registrar, who've been working very, very hard on this contract jointly with our colleagues in North Somerset, South Gloucestershire, and the Integrated Care Board. So the paper you've got in front of you today, which is for decision or approval, is in effect a simple decision. It's to request approval for the proposal which has been put to us by the Integrated Care Board to extend or in fact modify the current Children's Community Health Partnership contract by 12 months to allow sufficient time for an effective re-procurement process. We previously brought here the notice, our notice to trigger the re-procurement process. From a Bristol City Council point of view, our elements in this current very large contract are public health nursing, that's health visitors and school nurses, broadly speaking, and some small items which are procured through by our children's colleagues. So that's our stake in this much larger contract, and the elements that the Integrated Care Board are responsible for are all the child therapies. So there's no material change to what we brought to you previously. We're still working, so Monica, Joe and Charlie and the team are still working to progress the re-procurement and look at the options for that re-procurement, which we will involve the committee members in due course as that gets going, as we had said. But this is just formally requesting that Bristol City Council, as a key stakeholder in the current contract, agrees to this extension or modification. The paper is going to the Integrated Care Board, I think, next week, and they need to have our approval in order to take that through their process. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. And of course, this is coming to us because it is a key decision, because it involves expenditure of more than half £500,000. I mean, if you look at paragraph 2, in fact, it's significantly more than that, 13 million a year, which out of our committee budget, of course, is a significant proportion. Right, do you have any questions, comments, observations from members? Councillor Freeman.
Hi, given that it's a children's service, I was just interested to know a bit more about how it's linked in with children's services and also the committee, Children and Young People's Committee, whether it's gone to that chair as well.
Thank you. So the majority of the funding is public health funds. So those are services that sit directly, that I'm directly accountable for as Director of Public Health and that this committee is responsible for. There is a small element which children's commissioners purchase, largely children's therapy services rather than public health services. We work very closely internally, so this is a joint paper, and the relevant Children's Committee will be appraised of the elements for which they are responsible. But this committee is responsible for the public health element of the service, and it was one of the services that was referred to in the assurance process that was scrutinised and that we were commended for by the regional assurance visit. Thank you.
Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, Jack, and thanks for this. It looks like, you know, sensible proposal. I'm just wondering, with a extension of a single year, does it risk that we'll be leaving staff working in that service with the perception that, sort of, their time's running out, they might sort of try and find new jobs and leave the service early, or just mentally check out of their roles?
Thank you. So I will speak for the elements of the programme that we are directly responsible for. That is unlikely to happen because we have very close and direct links with the service providers. So public health nursing services are provided for us by Sirona. As I've just said, it was one of the areas that was particularly commended as performing well, notably nationally in terms of our retention. So we are working very closely with Sirona and will continue to do so. So for the elements of this programme that we are directly responsible for, we will have a very close eye on that. The reason that we have agreed with other partners for this extended time period is if we were to pull out unilaterally, it places other partners in a difficult position. So the ICB have requested this extension so that we can ensure, however these services are re-procured in the future, they are aligned and that the provider is secure, the provider base is secure, whether that is by competitive tender or some other route.
Thanks. Yeah, on well, the main contract is with Sirona, as paragraph 7 says. There are also 3 charitable subcontractors, off the record, Bernardo's, both of whom I've heard of, but also Kuth, who I've not heard of. Presumably this doesn't present them. Have we had an assurance that this doesn't present them with any problems? And could you perhaps tell us who Kuth are?
Thank you. No, absolutely. So this is in a bundle. So those services are voluntary community services subcontracted by Sirona in collaboration and discussion with us as commissioners. Kuth is an online children's mental health resource. It's spelt K-O-O-T-H, so you can find it by Googling. It's a national resource which has been purchased as part of this current bundle. So what will be happening, so this simply gives us another 12 months to undertake the detailed work that we need to do around the re-procurement of that bundle of services, which are public health nursing services, the 0-5 services, the health visiting services, which are the mandated services, and the 0-19 services, which are not mandated, but which are a priority for us in Bristol. So interestingly, school nursing services don't fall under mandation. They are considered discretionary by the Department of Health. For us, because of our large, we have a large number of children, high levels of inequality, we have maintained a level of investment in that, and we won't be seeking to decrease that.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Christina, for bringing this report to us. So if we weren't to pass this today, then the existing end date would be 31st of March 2027. Okay, great. So that's 21 months from now. So just for the benefit of us and anyone watching online, can you just walk us through briefly the steps that are needed for an effective commissioning process, and therefore why the 21 months we've got from today to the end of the existing contract is insufficient?
Thank you. So Bristol City Council was working to that timeline. For very large contracts such as this, although that does seem like a long time, actually it's quite a short amount of time to carry out all of the elements of the commissioning cycle, of which the procurement or the purchasing is the end part. So this is as Stephen has said, this is a significant investment. It is a mandatory service. There are some things that we can't do, that we can't not do, sorry. But we do have enhancements in Bristol, additionality that we purchase. We need to consult. We need to consult with those who use the service. We need to involve elected members. We need to involve the public in the new specification. As I say, there is a national specification, so that's set, but the bits around it, how do we want to do it? And that takes time. So we have already begun that process. We've set up the internal technical board because we need advice from legal, from procurement, from finance colleagues in order to set out the programme plan. And we're just about to trigger that. So we'll slightly adapt the timelines given we've had this request to extend. It's not appropriate for us. It would have caused huge difficulties for our partners if we were to insist on staying to the 2027 timeline, even although we could have done that and we were aiming to do that. But all of these services work in partnership. We have to ensure that our partners over the boundaries, particularly with South Gloucestershire, families move across those boundaries all the time, and the links with the other children's services, the therapy services, that we're not destabilising a system. So it gives us in Bristol 12 more months to carry out a thorough process in effect.
Thank you, and I'm keen that we obviously don't create a sense of, any sense of false jeopardy towards those services. That's certainly the last thing we want to do. I'm a little concerned about Parkinson's law here, so the idea that sometimes the work can take up the space that's given to it. So, and I note that you said that the programme plan hasn't been triggered yet, so there isn't yet a plan that says this phase will take 6 months, this phase will take 3 months, etc. That takes us to somewhere between 21 and 33 months. Have I understood that correctly?
So we've had this request in fairly recently from the Integrated Care Board to extend. So we do have a plan, which is to 2027. But we will be adapting that plan to take into account this extra year, essentially. And what might be helpful, I think, is for us to do a briefing for the committee to see that plan in due course. Monica, have we got anything in the diary for a briefing?
Yes, thank you. We've got a briefing planned in your diaries for the 21st of July. So we're hoping to bring an update on the actual recommissioning there.
Great, thank you. I maintain my concerns around Parkinson's law here, but I think it's it will certainly be helpful to get a briefing so we can see how that programme plan is going to work and at least be able to see retrospectively why a 21-month plan wasn't possible.
Thank you. It wasn't on our part not possible. This is a request from the Integrated Care Board, which, as Stephen's just described, is in some flux. We're absolutely clear that we need to not go beyond what this additional year. We need to land this. So absolutely take your concerns and
Thank you. And just one final follow-up question. Is this therefore, if it's to do with the flux status that we've got with the Integrated Care Board at the moment, is this effectively a knock-on consequence from the Health Secretary's announcements to to make significant changes within NHS England a couple of months ago? I'm concerned whether the intention of that was to reduce bureaucracy and whether that's actually creating more bureaucracy for us.
Oh, well, interestingly, this issue I think occurred before the recent announcements. The Integrated Care Board has got limited commissioning capacity, and the children's health services that they commission are complex. So there's a great deal of work that they have to do to understand the services that they commission and ensure that understand what they want to commission next. We were ahead of that for our public health nursing services, partly because we have a national contract, but we can see and we have to report on our performance and are monitored very closely on our performance. So this happened prior, but this new announcement just means it's a very sensible thing to do.
No further questions. Thank you.
Nonetheless, what Councillor Fraser says, I think, is correct, that the ICB, given its limited contractual capacity anyway, is going to have less capacity over the next 6 months or so, because once the Secretary of State approves the proposal which is on the table for the clustering initially, and then further down the tracks a merger in between Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire, our existing ICB, with Gloucestershire. Once that stage has happened, which we were expecting an announcement about already, but we haven't had it yet, the existing chairs of Gloucestershire and NSSG, I always get that wrong, I think I got that right, will be out of post and will have to reapply for their jobs once there is a chair of the cluster in place. They have to appoint a chief executive, chief medical officer, etc., etc., etc. So there's going to be a lot of things that they're going to have to do with their top brass before their commissioning staff can get to work on this. So there is going to be quite a bit of disruption, both for them, which is unfortunate, and for our own political furniture as well. As you all know, my other chair role for the council is of the Bristol Health and Wellbeing Board, and we have an integrated care partnership board as well, which rotates amongst the 3 local authorities that are currently in that body and is chaired by my North Somerset counterpart at the moment, will be chaired by me next year. But if Gloucestershire comes into that arrangement, we're going to have to rethink about our governance arrangements at a sort of political and partnership level as well. So there's going to be a lot of knock-on work as a result of this decision from central government. Lisa, I think you're indicating.
Thank you. Thanks, Christina. A question about performance monitoring. Once we're into the extension year, will performance be monitored against the same set of criteria or KPIs?
Thank you, Lisa. I think that's a very good question, and probably one important for the committee to note, that our elements of this contract, the public health elements of this contract, are very clearly monitored by us, but also nationally. It is one of our biggest investments from the public health grant, and it is closely scrutinised. We're benchmarked against other local authorities, and we currently benchmark very well. So one of the things that we've already put in place is that although until this contract ceases, the ICB is the lead commissioner, that we have a direct relationship with our providers in relation to our elements of the contract. And that's really important, and will continue, that will continue, that won't change. So what I'd say about this is our current contract, our current provider is performing extremely well. Nothing will change. That as we move into a new procurement, we would be seeking to maintain the level of performance and enhance it. But at the moment, it is safe, we monitor the contract, and that the ICB doesn't do that. What they're monitoring is the child therapy and the child health elements of that contract. I think the contract overall is about 30 million. I think the total bundle is about 30 million, about half of which is public health across the 3 local authorities, and about half of which is ICB NHS services. But we are also working very, very closely with our colleagues in the neighbouring authorities.
Chair, just want to, because I remember in October 24 we had this that came to the committee. I think Hugh Evans was present here. Was it? No? But the timeline that we were provided then, in terms of the public consultation and the commissioning strategies, was April to July 25. Yeah. If you have a look at the report, you probably find that. And Serona is somebody that's had this contract for 10 years, and obviously I think as members we need to be reassured that we're in a good place with this in the meantime, before, and if there is any transition, that we're totally involved with commissioning.
Thank you, Abdul, and a very pertinent question. We are absolutely assured for the public health bits of this contract. As I said, the public health bits of this contract, a large part of which are mandated, are scrutinised directly. They're directly accountable to me. They're part of the mandated services. They come under the Director of Public Health. And we are held to account. And in our recent assurance visit, it was one of the things that was looked at very closely. It's looked at throughout the year. And Bristol is an exemplar in terms of the performance of that contract. If this was, you're quite right, if this was a Bristol contract, we would have stuck to the timelines because we would have been in breach. Because the contract is held by the ICB, it's covered by different contractual different contractual arrangements, which means that it's, as an authority, you as a committee need to agree to this extension, but it's an ICB held contract. Yeah.
Right. So what we're doing in practice is extending this contract up until 31st March 2028, which of course coincides, whatever happens, with the end of our term of office as councillors, and possibly the end of this committee, but we'll have to wait and see how that story develops. Right. So I will move that the Committee for Communities and Public Health, 1, approves the proposal by the Integrated Care Board to extend the current Children's Community Health Partnership contract, including Bristol City Council services within it, by 12 months to allow additional time for a successful re-procurement exercise. And secondly, authorises the Director of Public Health, in consultation with the Chair of the Public Health and Communities Committee, to take all steps required to implement the extension of 12 months as outlined in this report.
Yeah, happy to second.
Thank you. Right, so it's been proposed and seconded. Can I see everyone in favour, please? That is unanimous, so thank you very much, colleagues, and that brings us to the end of this meeting. And our next meeting is on, is on the 22nd of August. Unlike Parliament, this council never stops, and we even have meetings in August. 22nd of August is Battle of Bosworth Day, I think, so I'll think of a Tudor theme for that meeting. Have a good day, everyone.